My husband, Owen, and I have been married for 2 years now. I may not have been skilled in many things, but I was always confident in my cooking. Your food is absolutely delicious, he once told me. That compliment, given during our first date over lunch, was what made me fall for him. After 6 months of dating, we tied the knot, and I left my job to become a full-time homemaker. Owen's father passed away about a year ago, leaving just the three of us: Owen, his mother, and me. I had hoped that we could spend some time alone as newlyweds, but when Owen said, "Mom has been feeling lonely since Dad passed," I couldn't refuse. It didn't take long after moving in to realize that my mother-in-law did not like me. I had dealt with difficult colleagues before, but she was far worse. She criticized everything I did. If I was cleaning, she would point out tiny specks of dust and ask, "Can't you see that?" Once she made me scrub at a stain on the floor that wouldn't come out, forcing me to wipe it repeatedly despite knowing it was permanent. I was expected to do housework nonstop until Owen came home. My mother-in-law even woke me up in the middle of the night, demanding I buy plastic wrap immediately because she couldn't sleep just thinking about it. Since the grocery store was closed, I had to run to a convenience store instead. Whenever I tried to wake Owen, she would lash out, saying, "How dare you disturb your tired husband? Household chores are the wife's duty." To avoid conflict, I complied. The midnight errands were exhausting, but what was even worse was the way she tampered with my belongings, throwing them away or hiding them. "I don't know where your things are. Maybe you misplaced them," she'd say, only to add, "It's terrible to blame others for your own carelessness." I will never forget the shock I felt when I found my favorite cardigan in the trash a few days later. I told Owen, hoping for support, but he only sighed. "You can just buy another one," he said dismissively. I begged him to talk to his mother, but it was pointless. With no other choice, I used my savings to buy a safe, locking away my valuables to keep them out of her reach. It's insane to distrust your own family like that. "I'd love to meet the person who raised you," she sneered. Her words became sharper each day. She criticized every meal I made. Too bland. No flavor at all. When I adjusted the seasoning, she complained it was too spicy. Doubting my own cooking skills, I turned to Owen for reassurance. "Mom is very particular about food, but I think it's delicious," he said. What had once been a passion turned into a chore. After enduring a year of this treatment, I had a realization. My constant presence at home was the issue, so I decided to get a part-time job. Though I had originally left my career at Owen's request, I regretted it. Working again, even with a small gap in my employment, reminded me of my worth. I was appreciated for my quick learning, and it felt good to be recognized again. But my mother-in-law shifted her cruelty to mealtimes. She would barely touch her food, leaving it untouched or deliberately knocking over bowls. "Oops," she'd say with a smirk. I once swallowed my pride and asked what was wrong with the meal, only to be met with mocking laughter. "You think just asking will fix everything? Try thinking for yourself." I silently cleaned up after her, but one evening she took things too far. During dinner, she stood up with her plate, walked to the trash, and dumped her food inside. Our eyes met, and she smirked. My stomach churned. I looked at Owen, hoping for support, but he continued eating as if nothing had happened. "This meal looks worse than dog food," she scoffed. Stunned, I turned to Owen, but he avoided my gaze. "She probably wasn't feeling well," he muttered. I was beyond frustrated. How could she throw away food right in front of the person who made it? Owen rubbed his temples in irritation. "Claire, I have work tomorrow. Unlike you with your little part-time job, I work full-time and don't have time for this." "What's wrong with working part-time?" "I work, I cook, and yet my food is thrown away like garbage." My voice cracked with emotion. He sighed heavily. "You're becoming a nag. Maybe Mom is annoyed by your constant complaining too. If it bothers you so much, just stop cooking." With that, he left the table, heading to the bedroom without a backward glance. It hit me then he truly didn't care about me. Something inside me snapped. The next morning, I made breakfast as usual. I called Owen and my mother-in-law to eat. As expected, she grabbed her plate, declared, "Not even a dog would eat this," and threw her meal in the trash. Without a word, I took away Owen's plate. "What are you doing?" they both shouted. I smiled and said, "Since your mother says even a dog wouldn't eat this, then you shouldn't either." I'll take responsibility for my own cooking and eat it myself. No, I didn't mean that, Owen protested. But you didn't disagree with her, did you? I challenged. Owen opened his mouth but had no response. My mother-in-law scowled. Claire, stop being ridiculous and make Owen's breakfast. I met her gaze and smiled sweetly. I'm so sorry for serving you something so unworthy. Don't worry. I will never cook for you again, I declared firmly. Finishing my breakfast, I set down my utensils and stood up. Wait, Claire, what about my breakfast? Owen asked in a panic. Eat whatever you like, I responded coolly before walking out of the house. Typically, I returned home around 5:00 p.m., but that day I had errands to run after work. By the time I arrived, it was well past 8:00 p.m. Oh, you're finally back. We've been waiting for you. Where have you been? Owen and my mother-in-law complained, visibly hungry. Oh, you two haven't eaten yet? I already had dinner, I replied casually. My mother-in-law's face turned red with shock and anger. How dare you eat alone, she snapped. Well, I did say I wouldn't cook for you anymore, or were you actually looking forward to my awful cooking? I said with a smirk. How dare you talk back to me like that? She yelled, slamming the table in frustration. Then, as if struck by an idea, her expression changed. If you're not cooking, then return the food money. Owen has been covering all the living expenses, so you should pay back every penny spent on your food, she demanded triumphantly. I couldn't help but laugh at her audacity. What's so funny? She demanded. Since I started working part-time, I've been paying for not just food, but all the household expenses. That was Owen's idea, actually, I revealed. Owen had once told me, Mom doesn't like you working, but if you handle the expenses, she might accept it. For over a year, I had been covering our living costs, meaning I had supported the household for half of our marriage. My mother-in-law, clearly unaware of this, turned to Owen, stunned. Is that true, Owen? She questioned. Well, you wanted more pocket money, so... Owen mumbled weakly, attempting to justify himself. He admitted that while I managed the living expenses, he had been using his income for his mother's indulgences and his own luxuries. You seem to have been splurging on extravagant meals, I noted. What? She stammered. I found a flyer in the mailbox offering loyalty rewards at a fancy restaurant, I explained. I had assumed she prepared her own lunches, but that flyer raised my suspicions. Later, I discovered receipts from the same restaurant in the trash. Shouldn't you be the one paying back the living expenses I covered? I asked. They fell silent, unable to argue. After all, it was my hard-earned money. I continued. Don't worry, I'll be sure to send you a proper bill, I said with a pleasant smile, watching my mother-in-law tremble in anger. What do you mean, a bill? Owen finally spoke up, his face pale as realization dawned on him. I want a divorce, and of course I'll be requesting alimony, I stated firmly. Divorce? He repeated in shock, but soon his expression shifted as he scoffed. Do you really think you can support yourself on a part-time salary? He mocked. Oh, about that, I've been offered a full-time position, I replied confidently. What? He stammered, suddenly uneasy. I've also decided where I'll live, I added. My actual plan was to stay with my parents temporarily, but my words clearly shook him. I'll have my lawyer handle everything from here on, I concluded. Without another word, I walked to the bedroom, grabbed the luggage I had packed the night before, and headed for the door. Owen remained frozen by the dining table, unable to process what was happening. Claire, I'm sorry, he suddenly cried out. I paused and turned to face him. Sorry for what? I asked coldly. It was hard to choose between you and Mom. But I never said anything bad about your cooking, did I? He pleaded. He still didn't get it. In that moment, I truly understood how blind I had been. It's not about taking sides, Owen. You stood by and did nothing while your mother threw away my food. You stayed silent while she tormented me day after day. No matter how many times I begged for your support, you ignored me. Playing the victim now doesn't erase the pain you caused me, I said, my voice steady. Owen broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I barely glanced at the pitiful man before walking toward the door. Just then, my mother-in-law called out, trying to stop me. I never meant for things to turn out this way. I just wanted to give you a little guidance, though I might have gone too far sometimes, she said. I was stunned at her complete lack of awareness. I took care of you all this time, and that's all you have to say, I scoffed. Well, at least now, you won't have to worry about sneaking off to expensive restaurants, I added. She stood frozen, her eyes wide as if she'd have forgotten how to breathe. I returned to my parents' home, where they welcomed me with open arms. They had already known about my struggles, and were relieved I had finally left. According to my lawyer, the entire neighborhood was aware that my mother-in-law never did any housework. In fact, my late father-in-law had taken care of the chores himself. After his passing, Owen and his mother had relied on takeout and dining out, seeing me as nothing more than a live-in maid. News of our divorce spread quickly. Owen's colleagues and superiors caught wind of it, bringing him endless embarrassment. Now, Owen and his mother are in serious financial trouble, having saved nothing and wasted everything they had. They're scrambling to pay the alimony they owe me. With their reputation ruined, they can't find another woman to take over my former role, nor can they afford the luxurious meals they once enjoyed. Desperately, Owen keeps texting me, begging me to come back. His mother, too, has been sending excuse-filled messages, but their words are meaningless, so I simply stopped reading them. These days, I find joy in cooking again. I bake sweets and cakes on weekends, sharing them with my colleagues. Surrounded by people who truly appreciate my efforts, I finally feel like myself again. With hope in my heart, I look forward to the future.